There was evidently a very, very big vote that took place this weekend with the Florida Democratic Party.
So for anybody who is familiar, our state Democratic Party had a weighted vote system, which we can get into how that worked. But needless to say, it was not all that democratic. And so recently a vote took place where we are seeing some progress being made in our state party. So we're going to bring on some people who are responsible for making that happen, which is definitely a step in the right direction.
I want to give a shout out to one of the great progressive organizers in North Florida, Christina Stewart, who was part of Osceola for Bernie.
And also a Generational Change Patreon.
Yes, she is a super duper awesome person who helped bring all of this together.
Yes, thank you, Christina. This was great.
I think it's very important that people really understand the minutia of politics. There are a lot of people who have this misconception about whether or not change within the Democratic Party is possible. I would tell you, stop believing that it can't happen. If you have interest in a third party, that's perfectly fine. But if you are willing to put in the work and learn the minutia of how these things are done, change can absolutely happen. And
especially looking at Nevada.
Clearly looking at Nevada. And of course, with what is ultimately happening now, as far as the pushback that is coming from the establishment in the Florida Democratic Party, it's clear that a massive impact has been made. And so with that said, there is a amazing lineup of individuals that we are going to bring into the studio now, some local, some across the state.
Okay, well, when you say, okay, everybody's Florida because this is Florida.
Yes.
Okay, so nobody's too far.
That nobody is too far.
Nobody's too far. We're not bringing in anybody, too far. But yeah, I mean, and this is, what, it's important to recognize the diversity around the state, and that South Florida is not the be all end all of Florida.
No.
And that is
often, although a lot of people that are voters down here for the way to vote, they do think that.
But we're not. And I think that there is a certain amount of resentment in other parts of the state towards South Florida.
There is.
And I don't blame them. I think it's annoying. And so, and in our progressive community, I think Central Florida definitely has us beat in a lot of ways.
I think that the I-4 corridor is definitely taking over to a degree. How quickly it's going to happen, I'm not sure. But with obviously an amazing progressive leader like Anna Escamani, along with Carlos Guillermo Smith, there are good people that are coming along that are really driving the narrative where it needs to go. So without further ado, we're going to bring in an all-star panel.
It's exciting.
We will start with our good friend, Tomas Kennedy.
Hi, Tomas. Long time no see since last week.
And a sharp haircut, I must say. We are, of course, also going to bring in one of the great leaders in the middle of our state, as you know, Nadia Ahmad.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello. We're going to start doing our own little
once there's more than two squares, it starts to look like Hollywood squares to me. Yes. And then I can't help but go off on that sort of thing.
We are going to bring in the brainchild, the attorney, if you will, who definitely knows the ins and outs of what the ramifications of this vote means, why it's
very
important,
exciting.
And what we can do
this is somebody
forward.
who can do weighted vote for dummies.
Weighted vote. Yeah, one of those famous books, right?
Because this is one of those things that I'm going to need charts. Go on.
Nancy Jacobson, welcome to Generational Change.
Oh, I remember you. We met, right? We met in Orlando.
Yes, we did.
Hi,
yes, we did.
How are you? I would never know by name, but I know when I see you. Okay.
And last but not least, the former and awesome progressive leader of the Broward Progressive Caucus, who has done endless work behind the scenes to make sure
Cauldron. All I can see is beard.
Yes, so he's got an impressive beard going on.
Oh yeah, is that a COVID beard? What's going there?
I actually started off COVID by shaving the whole thing, so this is all
exactly
relatively new growth.
That's great.
Well, kudos to you for doing something that I could never do, even if I tried.
Look, kudos to being very productive during this shutdown.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So whoever would like to have the floor first, I would probably recommend Nadia.
We need a little background. Whoever would give the best background as to how this has worked in the past, because most people would never even fathom this.
I think anytime anybody hears weighted vote,
Nancy, he's quoting to Nancy.
There you go. Anytime anybody says
that would probably be me.
It doesn't sound very democratic.
No, so explain how the process was in the party.
Okay, so how the process was in the party was, instead of allocating people to, based on Democratic registration and Democratic performance to the various counties, they were allocating votes. And in the very beginning, in the 70s, when this was all written up for the first time, the state was much, much less populous than now. It's like 3 times as much now. And but as the state grew, particularly in Southeast Florida, it became very unwieldy and very unfair, because all of a sudden there were people at that time carrying 20 or 30 votes. And I recently learned that Dr. Bailey, who was the longtime rules chair and one of the primary writers of the original thing, with another one of a great Florida Democrat, Chuck Mulkey, tried after the 2000 census to reform and change and move away from the weighted vote, because it was during the 2000 census that they noticed how out of balance it had become, and it failed. And I got on the Rules Committee in 2005. We were talking about it then. We've been talking about it ever since. And because you need 2/3 of the vote to change the bylaws, and when you have the weighted vote, you need the weighted vote to get rid of the weighted vote.
Right. That's the irony of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, right.
But how was it decided who would get how many votes? Like, I looked at the list where it says so-and-so has, so for people who are like, don't know, this is their delegates. Yes. This is like people that vote in the party election.
Correct.
And
Correct.
certain people would have more votes allocated to their name just because
of they were only one of 2 people in each county. And as the large counties grew even larger, it was based on Democratic voter registration, the number of registered Democrats in your county, plus Democratic performance. How well did the Democrats do in the most recent presidential and the most recent Senate races? And so those 2 things, there's a formula. It's actually the formula. There's nothing wrong with the formula. It was assigned to 2 people, and that was all. Just 2 people. And so the number of votes each person was carrying kept growing.
And Nancy, what would be, obviously, the only way this was going to change was a number of people who have significant amount of weighted votes in their favor.
That's what she was saying, to vote against their own interests. So who initiated this?
Yeah, was there anybody in particular, guys? You know, obviously, Tomas and Nadia, I would love for you guys to comment, because you guys are now state delegates. So this is a big deal. And obviously, you learn a lot about what goes on at the federal level. You know, obviously, we've heard a lot of stories about how this ultimately came to pass. Was there a specific movement that you guys, you know, kind of worked on and thought, you know what, we really got to change this, and we've really got to figure out a way to coalesce across the state? Whoever would like to jump in.
Don't all come in at once.
Do you want to take this, or should I?
You can go ahead, Thomas.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Tomas or Nadia.
Yeah, I'll start. So I'll say that this came to my attention when I first got involved with the Democratic Party, which was around 2016. I had worked for like labor in the labor union field and for third-party organizations, and obviously the election of Trump made me want to look under the hood and see like what's happening at the state party. And at the time, this billionaire that ended up having to resign because of sexual harassment accusations used the weighted vote to basically, you know, commit a bunch of shenanigans that we won't get into, and basically crown himself the new chair of the Florida Democratic Party. So from the get-go, my impression of the party was of an incredibly undemocratic space where decision-making power was concentrated in the hands of a few. So the weighted vote was immediately something that I identified as like, this is toxic and it's preventing the organization from functioning in a healthy manner. So I can tell you, you know, that as I joined the DNC, and Nadia can attest to this, I think we would agree on this, is that Florida is kind of like the black sheep of the state parties in the United States. Like, as we met DNC members from across the country, they would be like, oh, like, you're from Florida? Like,
that's a combination of disdain and pity.
Yeah. And I would say that we had a chat with like a lot of DNC members from across the country, and we put on the chat like, guys, like, we did it. The weighted vote goes down. They were all like, yes, like, amazing, because as was noted, the DNC wants us to get rid of this archaic Byzantine system. So the news was met with joy from the delegates from other states.
That's good. So you're saying on a national level, we were as usual, Florida.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I can attest to that as well, because I spent 8 years on the DNC from 2012 to from 2008 until through 2016. And when I got there, I had no idea, but Florida's delegation was always considered one of the weakest. And it was disappointing.
Nadia, you happen to be in what I think is the real changing of the guard part of the state, which is, of course, the I-4 corridor. If you could speak to the differences, because obviously down here in Broward, Miami-Dade is coming along. I don't know
why you say that. I mean, I think Miami-Dade and Broward should kind of be.
No,
I
but
think
you got to
give together would be more effective.
Maybe, but of course, in this instance, you got to give credit where credit's due.
Okay.
Miami-Dade, particularly, got to give credit to Annette Taddeo and William Byatt. They voted,
but it's not like Nadia's area.
No, there's definitely a real progressive uprising that is happening, and like we alluded to, Anna Eskamani, who we were hoping was going to run for governor. Obviously, it's not happening, but nevertheless has done an amazing job of leading a really progressive wave. We had Amari Hardy on the podcast recently. He could not stop lauding her and just talking about what an impact she has had. And of course, Carlos Guillermo Smith has done an amazing job. So I'm curious from your perspective, how things ultimately are going, up in Orange County and in that region in regards to this idea that we really are going to change the archaic ways that the Florida Democratic Party has operated with for quite some time.
I just want to interject for 1 second, and I'll just say, this is not just. I mean, Anna is amazing, like my favorite lawmaker in Florida. But I do want to say that, Annette Taddeo, who's like fairly progressive, but not as progressive as Anna, was like full. And she's a state committee woman from Miami-Dade, so she has a huge amount of votes. She was full on supportive of this and voted with us. And Audrey Gibson, also a state senator from Duval, also supportive of this. So it's like Nancy said, this is like a broad coalition of people from all sides of the political spectrum within the party that are just trying to encourage grassroots participation and try something new, because what we've been doing for decades is not getting us to the place of winning.
Agreed 100%.
Yeah, what I would add is that what we see happening in Central Florida is that the suburbs are expanding further out. And so you have Volusia County is also considered somewhat of a suburb of Orlando. And so this growth that we're having is not being met with changes in the party that should be happening with the changes in demographics. So for example, this is one of the things that I mentioned on the meeting on Saturday, was that we had Hurricane Maria happen in 2017. We already have named storms. We saw rapid demographic shifts as people were displaced from Puerto Rico. And we weren't able to capture a demographic that is historically democratic. And so that really speaks to the problem of messaging that we have within the state. And I think that really we're starting to see more happening within the I-4 corridor, but we're also starting to see expansion of the grassroots movement more broadly.
Yeah,
that's an excellent.
I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, and that is a great segue, Michael. To unfortunately, Broward. It's definitely there's so many different
Broward.
There's many different places we can go with it, but. It did seem that they were completely united behind this idea that they were going to keep the weighted vote. A lot of those votes ultimately ended up going that way. I'm not sure if you
can I say that I was not remotely surprised by who voted for that and who didn't. Can you? It's really, if you had to check and go down the list and just guess it, you'd be spot on.
Yeah, it kind of.
There was at least one other vote in Broward besides my own who voted to make the change.
Who was?
It was the delegate for the Florida Young Democrats. And that really, I think, speaks to the generational divide that we're seeing here. Yeah. It's not drawn on any lines more clear than it is there. Young people want a seat at the table. They want to feel valued. They want to be heard. And who can blame them? We all did when we were that age. And what has been done to enable that until now?
That's an excellent point. And Nancy, obviously, I want to circle back to you because, as you know, I equate what happened with we don't have to name his name. It's not important. But somebody who made a mistake in terms of how they voted. I equate it to no different than the voters in Palm Beach and Broward County who voted for Pat Buchanan. You may not have intended to vote for Pat Buchanan. You clearly wanted to vote for Al Gore, but you voted for Pat Buchanan. And the mistake ultimately falls on the person.
Are you telling me that happened, like something like that happened
yes, basically
in this vote?
That's what happened.
Is that what happened to your friend?
And so the question
I'm
now,
just
Nancy,
so sad.
is there going to be, do they have any type of legal recourse to try to challenge this? I've already seen one of the people who were in favor of the weighted vote put that message out there, that they think that they have some type of legal standing to try to reverse this decision. I'm curious from your perspective if they have anything to stand on, or if this is a done deal, basically.
Okay, so they made a decision because as of the time I came on, I had not heard it and I had been waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I see 2 texts here on my phone, which probably indicate what happened.
Okay, people, we're getting like up to the minute news. Like, this is exciting. It's almost like, we don't ever,
We're all at the edge of our seats right now.
We really are.
For real.
You're talking about the response to the grievance?
Yeah.
The grievance.
They
tell somebody where to stick their grievance.
No, they actually did.
Are you telling me that somebody was making the equivalent argument of they had a hanging Chad, or they made a mistake?
They haven't decided.
Yeah.
There are certain questions regarding voting procedures and their effect on the final vote tally that we are currently working to clarify. We hope to have the issue finalized in the coming days, but wanted to transmit this letter to keep the committee apprised of our progress and to comply with our commitment.
But I will say that their response does say that as of now, it passed.
That's great.
Yeah. But I will say...
I didn't read it.
Peter, I do disagree with your assessment a little bit because, like those people that you referenced to in that election actually voted, right? Like what happened here is, because people were also talking about like this person should be able to cure their ballot, right? Like they should be able to fix their ballot. Like that's fine, but like you can only cure a ballot if you actually voted. Like these
are people that didn't vote.
Yeah.
What actually happened to this person is they actually didn't vote because they didn't follow the directions that were repeatedly told to us multiple times. It happens, but it is the equivalent of you not putting your vote on the mailbox or the voting booth, whatever.
Okay.
Like the vote was actually never casted.
Right.
And now they're wanting it to be counted because they didn't like the outcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think at that point of the ballot being cast or not cast, all of those points are moot. That any challenges that are brought forward are not going to be in compliance with Robert's rules. Everyone was given instructions on how to follow the voting procedures. Everyone was also reminded during the vote that they had to follow these procedures. And if anyone deviated from that, they can't come back after the fact, after the chair has declared the results, everyone's seen the results. There were different procedures during the voting that we had online than there have been at previous in-person meetings, but the precedent that was set by the original election that happened back in January for the different SEC positions really sets the precedent that what I really see is a done deal in terms of any challenges that could be brought forward. I would be really surprised for the grievance committee to even to really to consider it as broadly as it could be. I really think that it's a done deal.
Yeah. So it's governed now by Robert's Rules of Order, and then all the things that they're talking about, like the instructions they have, all play a role in the decision. But one of the things I've been fond of saying for the last 2 days is that if every election were held up and had to be done over or whatever because of voter error, there would never be an election that was ever finished and final. So it seems to me pretty clearly to have been voter error, and that is not a basis for overturning what happened. But
the irony that it ended up becoming a voter error, which is something that the establishment always pulls on the grassroots in terms of anything that they can find, to make it so, is unfortunate. Now that it appears, knock on wood,
what is that look like?
So now that the weighted vote appears to have been alleviated, one of the things that I think could be addressed is this idea that we have our own state filibuster, if you will. The idea that you need a 2/3 majority to get anything passed. Is there any talk of potentially now removing the supermajority vote and making it a simple majority, if that's even an issue that's even been brought up as of yet?
I just want to.
Well, no, that
if you,
that was only for the bylaws. That was only for the bylaws change that it's a super. Normally, it's just a supermajority. Not a supermajority, just a bare majority vote.
I was not aware of that.
Only for bylaws.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, Peter, I just want to address what you said a little bit, because if that is not a testament as to why we need to change the system, then what is? The fact that something so monumental, right, as like changing the way that we conduct elections in the party was left to the voting error of one person.
One person.
And that was it. They had enough power to shift the election one way or the other. It worked out for the betterment of the whole electorate and the whole party here. And if we would have just democratized the process, right, like over 60% of the electorate wanted this change to be done, right? But the fact that such a single person has so much power over where the party needs to go, it's not good. It's not good, and it's a testament as to why we need to change this and give more voices decision-making power.
And let me try to illustrate that a little bit. Tomas, Nadia, and I each have one single vote. This person had almost 60 votes.
Yes.
So
59.
To get anything done, why talk to the three of us? Why talk to all the people with one or two votes when you can go and talk to the 14 people that have between 25 and 60 votes each?
Yeah, and those 14 people had a majority of the votes. Just 14 people. Just 14 people.
So it's like super delegates.
Yeah. Look, I'm a DNC member. No one calls me for anything. No one cares about me. I only have one vote.
Yeah.
You only have one vote. That's so sad.
Yeah, so very democratic, which is the way that it should be. I'm curious, of the 14 that had what you would consider a which you would consider an overvalued vote.
How many of them were on the correct side on this issue?
How many did actually cross?
All but 4.
Oh.
4. I know one of them, we'll say his name. I know one of them was Ricky Lai. Hats off to him. He really, really did.
I think we should definitely give props to people who did it. We don't need to point out people who didn't. There's no point in doing that. But I think it's okay to point out people who did that because it's the right thing to do.
Yes, 100%. Do you guys want to mention the other 3 people who did ultimately decide to vote, basically relinquishing their power for the sake of democracy?
Annette was one of them.
Yes, and William Byatt, and
and we're having her on our show soon.
Yes, Annette is coming.
Both of the state committee people in Duval, in Hillsborough, in Sarasota, in Pinellas, in Volusia, in Alachua. Alachua's not one of the large counties.
Notice how none of those.
I'm just trying to point out.
God, we're so pathetic.
Larry Snyder, we know Larry, great activist, great job. That means a lot. Larry's one of the hardest workers I've seen in Florida. So Tomas knows he's really something. So get involved at the local level.
This is how we can
stress this enough. It's so important. This is what the GOP does. They have everything at the ground level covered up. Everything. They treat a committee precinct person like they're the most important person in the world. And that's why they win, even when they are so horrible when it comes to what they stand for.
Yeah, they don't. But no, they work better as a machine. They do. And certainly in Florida. I mean, that's not necessarily the case everywhere, but certainly here.
No, this is definitely big. So from your perspective, and the last thing I want to touch upon in terms of the people who had the heavily weighted vote, and now that they don't, what were some of the advantages that they ultimately did have prior to the weighted vote changing, and now what are the things that ultimately will change going forward? Whoever would like to take that one.
Well, one of the things is what Michael, indicated is why talk to anybody else but those 14. So that gives them an awful lot of influence, and there's an awful lot of deal making that goes on. What committee do you want or whatever, and that will now. But I do need to point out that this will not take full effect until October of 2024. Right now, we're going to be working forward on building up the diversity and inclusion mechanisms in the various counties so that we can have a really diverse 400 people coming next in the next four-year cycle. But anyway, I just wanted to make that clear. It isn't like instant.
Right. No, I understand. And I'm sure that the people who voted no will grasp on for every last inch of power that they possibly can.
Now that you mention it, are there things that we should be looking out for potentially? It's almost like, now
that they're going to be losing what can they be doing on their way out the door?
What might they be doing? That's the question.
Well, you did mention how important it is to get involved at the local level. And so part of this diversity and inclusion plan means ensuring that each county's Democratic Party or DEC actually looks like the registered Democrats in that area. So pay attention to how that work is being done, how that outreach is being done. Make sure that your communities are represented the way you expect, and run for those seats. Many of them are open and available. It's just a matter of us reaching out and saying, why don't you sign up for this? We think we could use your voice.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how simple it is, and that there are so many open seats. I mean, do any of you know how many open? Because there was
Michael, if you could speak to that, for example,
so
I think there's like so many open precinct committee spots that if people wanted to get involved in Broward alone, it's like in the hundreds or something. Am I right?
Oh, easily in the hundreds. There are thousands across the state.
Yeah. And those are sitting open positions that people could be filling with their presence.
Every precinct has to have at least 2 people. Bigger precincts with more people have more representation. If it's not filled, it's just open. You can walk right in and say, I want to do this.
How do people know if they're
if there's a good place that you guys would recommend if people want to go?
Like, how do people know, like, whether their precinct has people in it or not?
They should go to the website for their county Democratic Party, and probably they're going to have to send a message and ask. And it's usually the membership committee, and the membership committee can tell you right away if there's an opening in your precinct. And more likely than not, there is. I'm sorry to say, but that's the fact. Here in Orange County, it's hundreds, and we have a fairly large DEC. But
okay, because ours is not that. Our DEC, as we know, is not all that.
And unfortunately, our DEC are not actively seeking out people to come and fill those posts, which is something where we more or less just kind of have to do it on our own.
Yeah,
and that I think
that will probably have to change.
Yes, well, of course. I mean, again, being more involved at the local level is really the key.
Why can't Broward get it together?
Well, again, there's. Michael, if there's what
I'm not sure I can answer that question. But I will say this for people who are listening or watching in Broward County. If you are interested, reach out to me. Let me try to help you get in the right direction, get the information you need. I could do that much.
Okay. Because Broward, it is definitely, there's a dearth of, and certainly of people that we want to be involved in stuff. We're not as progressive as one would want.
And that is a great segue back to Tomas. I don't think we can say enough about what the Miami Progressives have done. They were immensely active during both of Bernie's presidential runs, but they never lost sight of the long-term goal. The fact that William Bide is a part of it now. Annette Taddeo, obviously, who is a state senator and voted in favor of the democratic process, I think just speaks to the fact that they sense that the change is happening and it needs to happen, even if it didn't necessarily happen in Broward or Palm Beach County. But the fact that it did happen in Miami-Dade definitely, can't say enough. And they did, if you think about it, subtracting what ultimately ended up happening in Broward, those 2 key votes in Miami-Dade, you could say, ultimately made the difference in the election.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I won't harp too much on it. I mean, I think, Peter, you are correct. I don't want to tout like the corner a little too much, but I will say that I think Annette and buy it actually genuinely are disturbed by this undemocratic system in the party, and they genuinely do want to relinquish their vote share for the benefit of the broader Democratic Party in Florida. So I really don't think that it was actually them putting like their finger up in the air and seeing which way the wind is blowing. They have been working on, I've known them for years, and they've always been like, this system sucks and we have to get rid of it. So, when they did the right thing at the end of the day. And, some people actually talk about it, and then when they get their vote share, they bait and switch us, but they came through. Yeah, they came through with it.
So what is the next step as far as what we should be looking to do going forward
within the party? I mean, this is, we looked at Nevada as sort of like this blueprint idea as to what could happen within a few years within a state party, and then what that means for progressive candidates going forward, not being blacklisted and ghosted when they have their own kind in positions of power. So, do you guys think about that kind of concept going forward, about just getting more of an infiltration, and what else we could do now that you were able to do this?
Potentially even some ballot measures in 2022 that might make sense for us to be fighting for.
Yeah. I'll just say I don't think about it as an infiltration, because we belong here. Like, this is our fucking party. So I think what people should be doing right now is exactly what we were talking about just a little bit ago, is sign up precinct captains, sign as many precinct captains as possible, and just spread the decision making around and democratize the process. And we have to make sure that this weighted vote reform not only stands, but is perfected by 2025. And then of course, we have big elections coming up statewide. We got to beat Ron DeSantis. We got to beat Marco Rubio. We got to flip congressional seats. So we got to do that work as well. But at the bottom line, in terms of bettering the Democratic Party, I think it's as basic as just sign up as many precinct captains as possible to your local county DC.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize they should go to the county Democratic Party website, because typically the supervisor of elections website or the office really does not have updated information on that. That's the membership committees in your particular county Democratic Party. There are always openings, and bring friends.
And Tomas, to piggyback on what you said, you're right. This is our party. This is not they treat us like we're infiltrators, but the reality is everybody's welcome. And as I like to emphasize every time we do this show, anytime we talk to anybody when it comes to this political divide, it's very simple. It's corporate versus non-corporate. You are either accepting of this idea that we are fighting for certain change within a party that has members that are okay with it being funded by Big Sugar, by NextEra Energy, by Walmart, and we are trying to change that, because we believe that this should be a party that represents working people. And so the more we emphasize the importance of electing non-corporate representatives at all levels, not just obviously Congress matters. The governor's race is obviously very important. And of course, the U.S. Senate. Can't emphasize enough that we can learn a lot from the things that the GOP does do, which is they emphasize the importance of the local precinct committee positions. They are very important. And the more people are willing to get involved, the more you will have that even bigger seat at the table. I'm the treasurer now of the Broward Progressive Caucus, and I'm proud to help.
Yeah, fancy title. Fancy title.
But we all have a role to play, and we all, want to do things. Here, obviously, we do our podcast. We have a local organization that is involved with community service efforts. The more that we do these types of things, the more the change becomes much more of what is considered the norm rather than the fringe. And I think we are changing that. And I think listen, you know what? You want to call it divine intervention? I don't know what it was that ultimately allowed us to get the onside kick, if you will, to fall in our favor, but I'm taking it, and I'm not apologizing for it. And I have friends that are on the side that wanted the weighted vote to stay, but you know what? Times are changing.
I don't have any friends on that side.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll give you one more thing. I'm here pitching for the DECs when in fact I should be pitching for our own organization. I'm the current president of the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. come join us, join your county chapters. Whether you want to join your DEC or not, that's a great way to get involved, great way to help progressive candidates talk about progressive issues. And if you want, be that progressive change within the party. Go to progressivefl.org.
Centricity not apply. You
That was
know,
good.
Mike, interesting.
Good, Mike.
I was supposed to be on some sort of platform committee and was told that I would be notified, and then nothing ever happened. What happened to the platform committee, Mike?
Platform committee is a little bit on hold right now. It's coming up soon, though.
I'm just glad that we finally have something that we can really, I would say, run with. I think that this is very big. I can't thank
promising.
you guys. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. This has obviously been very informative, because that's really what we need to do. The more we inform, the more we spread the word. You know, I really want everyone to, again, we have to work with as many people as we can. This is not, oh, we're going to take our football and now run with it and we're going to kick you guys out. No, we're basically trying to show everybody that change is possible, and this is what's holding us back. It's not a question of that person over there who supported that idea. It's about focusing on the structural issues that are keeping us from having a party that actually responds to the will of the people. That has always been the biggest hang up that we've had to deal with. And I think we are definitely moving the ball in the right direction. So with that said, we want to give the floor to you guys. Each of you, if you want to make a final statement, please do. Anything you want to plug, by all means.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll get started just to say, you know, Peter, to build on your comment there, you know, this change on the weighted vote was not really a progressive-led issue. There have been people from all stripes within the party who have been working on that. I mean, you heard Nancy, been working on this for a decade or two. So this was an opportunity for progressives to form larger alliances and find allies who may not see things exactly the way we do, but understand that we can work together to bring change.
Very well said.
Yeah, I'd second that, and I'd say that what happened on Saturday, and I'm going to assume that it will stick, is a great step forward for small d democracy in the Democratic Party, which will better be able to listen to the people, because there will be more of them across a broader spectrum involved in the party.
Yeah.
Before Saturday, I really was frustrated with being involved as a precinct captain with my DEC, and even with the DNC. But after we were able to bring about the change, I really felt excited about it, and I knew that we could do more effective organization and mobilizing going forward. And I did want to put in 2 plugs. The first one is there's going to be a national march for Palestine in Washington, D.C. If any organizations would be willing to support and endorse the march, I would really appreciate it if you could reach out to me. And also, we're looking to build out an Asian American caucus at the Florida Democratic Party. So if anybody is interested in doing
Asian American caucus, you said.
Yeah, Asian American.
Asian, okay.
Nadia, do you have a date for the Palestine March on Washington?
The Palestine March is on this Saturday. And so we have about 70 organizations that are currently endorsing the march.
That's May 27th?
29th.
29th.
There you go.
It's National Palestine March.
Is there anything happening statewide or locally that is parallel to that?
There's a number of cities that are hosting marches, and there's just a growing movement worldwide. Over the weekend, there's 200,000 folks that marched in London. And all across, we're seeing that this is really a moment of international solidarity that is building. The same way ordinary people were able to change the tide in South Africa, we see that same type of movement building right now in the U.S. for Palestine.
All right, cool. Excellent. Tomas?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, and this is not to call anyone out because, whatever. But, yeah, like, before the vote, people were like, this is not going to pass. Like, why am I even going to burn political capital in this? We don't have the votes. And I was like, yo, everybody stay on formation because this is going to be close. Like, but my point is, like, don't get discouraged. Like, don't ever doubt yourself. Like, it's, obviously I'm not trying to put this on the same scope as the, like, South African struggle against apartheid, but Nelson not at all. But Nelson Mandela once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done," and that goes for a lot of things, right? So, like, whatever your fight is, whatever you're trying to change, like, don't get discouraged. Believe in yourself, push forward, and like, you can do it. So that's all I gotta say. Just believe in yourself and fight on.
Nadia Ahmad,
Absolutely.
Tomas Kennedy, Michael Calderon, and Nancy Jacobson, 4 amazing leaders in the rapidly changing
such an announcer
Democratic
voice.
Party. Yeah, well,
Yes,
I got
such
it.
an
Hey, we
announcer
got to make
voice.
the podcast work, right? So it's all good.
Someone has
Thank-
to. Be
Thank you for having us.
No,
Very
this was
welcome.
great. Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
guys. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. That was very good. I mean, I can't really say
No,
enough
I don't.
about how
I don't generally want to sit and talk about how much I enjoy engaging with the party, but this was actually quite pleasant.
And again, I think this
but-
is a welcoming group. This isn't
Yes.
like you're running against Debbie.
Debbie.
That's Debbie C. It's
That's
like
Debbie
that
C.
stuff. That stuff's going away. It's going away.
Well, it's definitely it needs to.
It may take a long time to go away in Broward, but it's
Okay,
going away
we will be
around
the last
state.
bastion of progress for sure.
We
But
talk all the time about how Florida is the last state that'll get anything right,
And
Broward will
Broward.
be the last county that
it's
gets
so
it right.
sad, but it's true.
Well, we're working our way.
The question remains: will it happen before or after we're underwater? Because I need to know how much. We need to figure out like investing in scuba gear.
I think that we definitely have
That
done,
was great.
Have done a. This has been a great show, and
He says that
have,
almost every show, though.
Well, I take
He's
cues
always
from,
like, "This is a great show."
well, I take cues from Crystal and Sagar because they always say that every show. Every show's a great show. Every
show's a great show. We have a great show.
So-
You know what we should do? We should come on and say, we have a real crappy show for you guys.
But we're
today."
going to do our best to make sure it doesn't stink too bad. So that's basically.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.